Hello everyone and welcome to Out and Equal's Global Webinar Series. Today's webinar is called LGBTQ Workplace Inclusion Initiatives in East and Southeast Asia. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is CV Viverito. I am the Global Initiatives Manager here at Out and Equal, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Okay, first I'd like to just make some quick technical announcements for everyone who's dialing in or those who are logging in. Please keep in mind this is a broadcast audio call from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. China Standard Time, or if you are where I'm dialing in from on the East Coast of the U.S., it's Wednesday, April 10th at 9 p.m. This webinar will be 1 hour long. Please make sure to use the speakers or headsets on your computer to turn the volume all the way up to hear us. If you are having trouble with the computer audio, you can always dial into one of the phone numbers that was in your confirmation email. If you or a colleague is having trouble logging into the webinar online, you can go to www.readytalk.com. You can click on Join a Meeting, and you can use our access code 6946521. If you experience technical issues during the call, you can use the chat function. Use the chat function on your screen to send us your questions, and we'll address them as soon as possible. Please also use the chat function to send us your content-related questions throughout the webinar. You don't need to wait to the end to give your questions to presenters. Just send them in as you think of them, and there will be a 15-minute Q&A session at the end of the webinar today. Last but not least, just a friendly reminder that this webinar will be recorded. So that will be available to you at the end, and I'll send an email out to everybody who registered. Some people are chatting in and saying that they can't hear us, so I'm just going to chat a quick solution to folks who are having trouble with audio. As I said, if you are having trouble with your audio, make sure that your headsets are turned all the way up, your computer volume is working. If you cannot hear audio, I'm sending in a chat to give you all of the phone numbers that you can call to be able to hear audio. Okay. If you do have any further technical issues, please let me know. Okay. And we're just getting a couple more questions in, so please bear with me as I answer folks' questions. Okay. Is the operator on the line? Folks are saying that they can't see the recording, or they can't see the screen right now.
Yes, I am on, and everything is still established.
Okay, thank you. Let's move forward for now, and let's see if we get a couple more people who are saying that they can see the screen, and then we'll figure out what the problem is from there. Okay, I'm just going to keep announcing webinars and events, and let's see if folks from some other places are able to see the screen. As I said, if they can't see the screen, we'll circle back and correct the issue. Really quickly, let me move on to this slide so we keep up with our time for now, which is a quick announcement of webinars and events that are coming up. On April 25th, we have our webinar that is How LGBTQ Advocacy Impacts Marketing Strategy. In early June, we'll have another global webinar, which is called Post-Section 377 Workplaces in India, Progress and Future Goals. Some events that are coming up, April 16th, Ivy, I know that there's some people in China that aren't able to see. If they are able to go to www.readytalk.com and click on the box that says Join a Meeting, and then use the access code 6946521. That is the solution to be able to see the screen. So if the link in the email wasn't working, that is the solution to be able to then see the screen, if you can let the folks know. Okay, Sorry about that, everyone who is seeing the screen, just making sure we can all see. I do want to announce some upcoming events, as I was saying. April 16th through 18th, we have our Out and Equal 2019 Executive Forum. That's right around the corner. That's happening in San Francisco. Next upcoming event will be in June, and although it's not on here, it's most likely going to be June 13th. I want to particularly highlight this one since it's relevant to the conversation today. We're really, really excited about the second iteration of the LGBTI China Forum in partnership with Shanghai Pride. As some of you may know, last year 90 people from about 50 companies attended our roundtable event. And this year Shanghai Pride and Out and Equal are expanding the event to a full-fledged forum, which will attract more participants and more companies. It will include both a beginner and advanced track, and not to mention more regional perspectives. It will be free to attend. We're probably going to open registration sometime next week, so be on the lookout for an email from us on that. I do see some folks logging in to our web platform, so that's great. So it looks like people are starting to gain access. That's great. Last but not least, August 2019, we will have our second iteration of the LGBTI India Forum in Bangalore, India. Okay, hello to the folks who are joining us right on time. This is our first interactive poll of the day. So as you can see here on the screen is a poll. I encourage you to click on the answer that is relevant to you. The first question that we're asking everyone is, where are you joining us from today? The options are, I see some people are answering here, South Asia, East Asia, Southeast Asia, Oceania, Europe, North America, or other. So go ahead and click on where you're joining us from. You should see the results populate on the screen. We've got a few folks logged in through the web. Some other folks are calling in. So there's going to be more polls throughout this presentation. So stay tuned for that. Probably more people will be on the line by then. Great. I see some people chatting in that they're still having some trouble logging into online. As I will go ahead and use the chat function to address those issues just after I present, after I introduce our presenters for the day. So just hang tight for just a minute. First, I want to present the topic and our wonderful presenters today. East and Southeast Asia, as we probably already know, have experienced some recent advancements and some recent setbacks in terms of LGBTQ matters. Through these recent setbacks, whether they be either legislative losses or referendum defeats, many companies in the region are supportive, and a great number continue to push innovative advancements. Still, it's true that some companies face social and legal obstacles when engaging in these efforts. So during this webinar, we're going to hear from Shanghai Pride about how companies can navigate the gray area of this work. Then we'll hear some tips and advice from the corporate side of things, specifically from EY's perspective in the region. And last but not least, we'll examine some concrete examples of D&I work from SAP. So taking a moment to introduce those speakers, first we're going to hear from Wong, who is a program manager at Shanghai Pride. Ivy was born in Hong Kong and relocated to Shanghai in 2017 as a researcher in board corporate governance at an executive search firm. As a proud LGBTI ally, she has worked for the as an LGBT+ program manager for the NGO Community Business in Hong Kong, where she helped pioneer the Hong Kong LGBT+ Inclusion Index to benchmark workplace inclusion. She now works with Shanghai Pride and is co-leading the second annual Out and Equal China Forum, as I mentioned, taking place this June. Next, we're going to hear from Rath Wang, International Tax Manager with EY. Rath is also the EY Unity Co-Chair for EY's Greater China region, which is their LGBT+ professional network, and is the Unity Country Leader for Taiwan. He's lived in the US, Taiwan, Japan, and Thailand, and has previously served as Treasurer for the GAPA Foundation, Gay Asia Pacific Alliance. And he also was a founding member of Japan's first LGBT workplace equality group called Najiro Diversity, and launched the EY Unity chapter in Japan as its first leader. Last but definitely not least, we'll hear from Mickey Gamboa, Pride at SAP Regional Lead for APJ and HR Service Senior Consultant with SAP. Mickey has been based in Manila, Philippines for 10 years and joined SAP in August 2015. where he's in charge of training and career development conversations for internal employees. He has 10 years of experience in a number of different fields and is very passionate volunteer and advocate for education, diversity, and inclusion. In fact, Mickey started the Pride at SAP Philippines chapter in 2015, and in the following years, he has helped launch local Pride chapters in India, Singapore, and Japan. So I'm going to get to answering all your technical questions right now, and with that, I'll kick it to Ivy to start us off.
Great. Great. Thank you, Stevie. Thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone from Shanghai. My name is Ivy, and Program Manager in ShanghaiPRIDE. So before I start my presentation, just take a few minutes to have some exercise with you guys. And so for the first question, do you know when was the Pride Parade in China in 2018? So there's some option for you to choose. Is it either November 17th, October 27th, June 30, or if you don't know the answer? So just want to take a few seconds to see if anyone knows the correct answer. Okay, I see some folks answering questions. So most of the audience online is answer that I don't know. So yep, I think you're right, because in China there's no Pride Parade in ever in China. So it's okay that you don't know the answer. So for the second question, is it true or false that homosexuality is listed as mental illness in Chinese classification of mental disorder of the Chinese Psychiatric Society? So do you think that homosexuality is still a mental illness in China? Right, I can see some response popping in. Right, so I think majority are right, and so it is false. So homosexuality is not a mental illness as of today in the Chinese Psychiatric Society. All right, the next question is it illegal to be LGBTQ in China? If it's true or false to be illegal in LGBTQ in China? All right, I can see the response coming in, and yep, the majority is saying that it's false. So it's yep, you're correct. So it's not true that being LGBTQ in China is illegal. And just one last question. Do you think that LGBTQ NGOs can be registered in China? True or false? See, the question is popping in. The answer is popping in. Okay, so majority of you say that it's false, saying that LGBT cannot be registered in China, which is correct. LGBT NGO cannot be registered in China, and I will tell you how our friends can still operate here in China. Right? So what is ShanghaiPRIDE? So basically, we are a group of volunteers who are passionate in promoting LGBT causes in China. It really started back in 2009 when our co-founder, Charlene Liu, who is, you can see on the left side of the picture, the very first lady on the first row, who really liked to party very much and started to organize different LGBTQ-friendly party in Shanghai. And so gradually, the party and the events are getting bigger and bigger. And in 2018, we hit our 10th anniversary, as you can see on the picture on the right. So today, we are really sharing what we have learned in the past 10 years, and hopefully can shed some light and break some myths on promoting LGBTQ in China for some of you. So today's topic is about how to navigate a gray area in promoting LGBTQ in China. But why there is a gray area? So there's various reasons. First, for many years, the government approach to LGBTQ issues in China is no approval, no disapproval, and no promotion. And secondly, there is no law against or for LGBTQ in China. So as I mentioned just now in the exercise, homosexuality is decriminalized back in 1997, and it's also removed as a mental illness in 2001. And thirdly, there's always a censorship about LGBTQ content online in social media or also in film. And fourth, LGBT organizations are constantly got shut down by the government. However, at the same time, last month, China, for the very first time in history, has promised to protect its LGBTQ people, suggested by the UN to adopt anti-discrimination legislation. So while we see some darkness in promoting LGBTQ in China, we can also see some light from the government to agree with the international appeal. So all these have created mixed and ambiguous messages for both the community and the corporate on what is the stand of the government towards LGBT issues in China. There's no definite rule or law in defining what is bottom line that the Chinese authority can withstand. And just this has created a great area for us to continue promoting LGBTQ work here in China without touching the line. So in China, as I mentioned, LGBTQ organization cannot be registered with the government. However, this does not deter us, the grassroots community here in China who want to promote LGBTQ issues to China and to operate. For most of us, as we need to raise funds, sign contract, issue invoice for our partners, we simply need to register ourselves as a company. So for example, the Beijing LGBT Center registered themselves as a cultural media company, which help doing promotion, events management, design, and strategy. Another example is PFLAG, which is the largest organization in China in helping families and allies with people who are LGBTQ. They are also registered under a technology company. One of their volunteers was set up. And although we are registered as a company, this does not mean that we are fully employed or staffed with abundant financial resources. This is merely a means for us to stay official within the Chinese authority system and operate with different sponsors and partners to sustain our work in China. Censorship has always been a problem in China, no matter if it's related to LGBTQ issues or not. Just the usage of terms and terminology is another trick for us to get away from the censorship here in China. When we talk about LGBTQ in China, we always tell external parties that we would like to raise awareness for the community here, rather than to fight, change, or challenge any norms or taboos here in China. We also hope to promote acceptance of LGBTQ people here in China rather than asking for the equality of the people here. While we are doing our work, we claim ourselves as advocates rather than activists who want to challenge the law and order in China. So there is no law saying that, well, we must not use those terms. However, it is highly recommended that we try to avoid several terms so as to avoid us getting in trouble with the authorities. Well, there's no one wants to have coffee or tea with the government official here in China. Just we want to promote LGBTQ issues here in China. As mentioned in the exercise at the beginning, mass demonstration is not allowed here in China. And I'm sure many of you in the call have participated in Pride Parade and in your lifetime, be it in the US, in Hong Kong, Taiwan, India, or the Philippines. However, this does not mean mass gathering is not in China is forbidden, which does not mean that we are hiding ourselves at home. Bikes in China are popular in China because if you have a phone, you can easily hop on a bike with just 1 to 2 RMB per hour. Just we have created a Pride rainbow bike where participants start biking in rainbow colors from different starting points and towards the same destination. We also create another event called Pride Run. As running is free on the streets. So participants can run from different locations towards the same destination as in the Pride bike. So as you can see in the picture, we are happy to have lucky to be our sponsor for 3 years in a row to support this healthy and social event in Shanghai. And this can also raise visibility for both Likey and LGBT individuals in the public. And yes, movies about Freddie Mercury was banned in China cinema. However, it does not deter us from bringing LGBTQ movies from China and overseas to our film lovers here in China. And since 2012, we have been collaborating with different consulates in Shanghai to create ShanghaiPRIDE Film Festival, where we host and screen movie at each of the consulate venue and invite directors or actors from the movie to do sharing with our local audience. As of today, we are lucky to have 16 consulates to support our work and to undergo this cultural exchange with us. We would also like to highlight that consulates have always been our champion in China supporting gender-related events. Especially consulate from Canada and Holland has been supporting us since 2010. And also the current U.S. Consul General in Shanghai, Wong, have said that while he has hosted gender-related events at his private residence when he was stationed in Dongbei, which is the northeastern part of China, just because no venue in that area will dare to bear the risk of hosting such events. Foreign consulates just play a very important role in bringing overseas partners to China and also as a channel to the world that, LGBTQ do exist in China, and it is not that scary for foreign partners to support us here in China. Media campaign is another important part of our work in promoting LGBTQ in China, and we are lucky to have engaged these 4 corporate and creative agencies and providing pro bono work for us to promote Pride in China. And in particular, Wenman has been supporting us every year since 2015. In 2015, and every year we in the Pride we will have a Pride film, and in 2015 we have a Pride film called Love is Equal, where we invite LGBTQ couples and also their parents to show that love is the same no matter what is your sexual orientation or gender identities. In 2016, our Pride film is I Am Me, where we invite LGBTQ individuals and their parents to show different social identities they have in their society in different parts of their life. In 2017, the time is now. This campaign is created by the Converse, which we express our own identity and say that now is our time to show our real self to the world. And last year, we engaged Wenman and created a campaign called We Are a Family. The importance of family in Chinese society is demonstrated by the fact that 85% of the Chinese sharing as few as 100 surnames. And the Chinese LGBTQ community is also a family, sharing the same value and striving for equality. And the campaign We Are All One Family celebrates the 10th anniversary by showing that everyone is somehow connected to someone that is LGBTQ. And we are also very proud that this campaign has won a Gold Award at the Asia Digital Media Award this year. All these campaigns feature Chinese LGBTQ individuals and allies and the parents, which help reinforce the fact that LGBTQ is not a Western concept, but it applies to everyone, no matter who you are, where you're from. Having a very safe and open space for LGBTQ people in China is very important. And in the last 2 years, we are very proud that we are collaborating with Converse with their Yes to All campaign and to promote LGBTQ inclusion in China. They sponsor us venue as well as the rainbow shoes for our Pride volunteers. And with their support, we managed to hold parties and provide a safe space for the community to be who they are and with the ones that they love. Another supporter with us is Anda's Hotel, which is under the Hyatt Group. And each year we organize a large outdoor brunch at the hotel at the central location in Shanghai, which is the very downtown area in Shanghai. As you can see, we were wearing rainbow colors to show the diversity of us. And ANDAS has been supporting us for 3 years now, and the support have created another inclusive environment for the community to enjoy great food and company without being afraid of being kicked out just because of their own sexual orientation or gender identity. So Shanghai Pride is just one of the largest grassroots organization in China in promoting LGBT issues in China. However, as you can see on the screen, there are numerous organizations in different parts of China supporting various LGBTQ causes, such as HIV, transgender, family acceptance, etc. Even though there are lots of uncertainties and ambiguities in supporting LGBTQ in China, there are a lot of us who can help you to navigate all these gray areas and help the community to flourish and gain acceptance in the difficult environment here in China. So I know that it's quite fast, but I'm happy to answer any question you have after the other two speakers finish their presentation. Thank you so much. And back to you, Sylvie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ivy. That was great. Let me quickly move into another poll before we get to our next presentation. These will be kind of scattered throughout the presentation. So this poll says, is diversity and inclusion a part of your job? It can be yes, it's an integral part of my job. Perhaps you work in HR, perhaps you are a D&I professional, etc. Another answer could be yes, but as a volunteer, maybe as through an ERG, maybe through outside of work. Or no, it's just a personal interest. So go ahead and click on the answer that makes sense for you. Looks like most people are saying that it's an integral part of their job, but plenty of people are also doing this on a volunteer basis. And some folks is just a personal interest. Very cool. Okay, great. Well, thank you for participating. And we'll do another one later on in the webinar, but for now, I'd like to hand it over to Rath.
Thank you, Sylvie. Hi, everyone. My name is Rath Wang. And to reintroduce myself, I work at Ernst & Young and currently serve as the Greater China Regional Co-Chair and also the country leader for Taiwan of our LGBT+ employee network called Unity. And we use the same name globally for consistency purposes. And first, I'd like to start off by quoting my sponsor/mentor, Beth Marciniak, who serves as our Global Vice Chair. And she's been a very vocal out executive and has been on the 100 Most Powerful Women's list by Forbes for almost 10 years, I think, into her 10th year this year. And the quote reads, "Don't just be successful. Don't just use your talents for your own success, but make a difference with them. Do something significant." When I put those two things together, it just causes me to not accept the status quo. And I think a lot of us who are in this profession or in this passion can relate to that, because this is a very controversial topic in a lot of countries and jurisdictions, especially in Asia or in Africa. And this quote has been a guiding light to myself, ever since I started on this journey at Ernst & Young, and also even before joining it, after watching Beth and her video coming out as a part of the It Gets Better campaign. And to start my presentation, I'd like to, this is just an intro of what I'll be presenting, is how to create lasting change that makes a difference for your organization's LGBTQ people in East Asia. And I'd like to focus on East Asia because, as CV introduced, I worked in Japan, Taiwan, and closely work with our colleagues in Mainland China as well as in Hong Kong. And from my experience with our initiatives at EY, the three things that I find very, very imperative to make our LGBT inclusiveness initiative successful are summed up in three key words. First one is visibility, second is continuity, and third is locality. And I'll first start off with visibility. So in East Asia, especially in Taiwan and Japan, the corporate culture is highly shaped by the tone at the top. So what this means is that employees usually would look up to their leader, and if their leader says no, or if their leader doesn't show implicit support, then it oftentimes becomes a sort of a kind of a silent message of disencouragement. So it's important for both ally and LGBT leaders to be vocal and be visible. Although not illegal in the countries that I mentioned, in Taiwan and Japan and in most of East Asia, it's still a topic that is often less discussed. And in terms of continuation of activities, because it's still a relatively new topic within, or a topic that hasn't been oftenly discussed, where there's still a lot of change with legislation, with national debates. It's imperative that the leaders and also people at all levels at the company continue to talk and to show support that the firm is supportive, regardless of the backlash or either negative press that comes out of whatever LGBT topic is on the news or in the newspapers. And third is locality, would be to synchronize local events and to make sure that you're well connected with them, say like the Pride Parade in Taiwan, or like the different initiatives similar to PFLAG in the various different countries, or either the corporate events that happen that support and promote LGBT inclusiveness. And before I move on to the specifics, I'll talk a bit more in the later part of my presentation. I'd like to quote our premier in Taiwan. Premier is basically the head of the executive branch of our government, Su Zhentang. He mentioned this about a month ago on national TV to show his support after the executive branch's draft version of marriage equality of the same-sex marriage bill passed the executive. It's still being debated in Parliament, but the Supreme Court, or our highest constitutional court, has mandated that this has to go into effect automatically by the 24th of May of this year. So the quote reads, homophobia stems from a misunderstanding that sexual preference is acquired after birth, meaning that it's actually natural, it's not a preference, and all Taiwanese should be treated with respect and equality. And I think we can take this as a role model quote, because as an ally, come out, use your platform on national TV to promote with them the greater non-LGBTQ community that these are issues at core, that it's not just the right thing to do, but it's natural in terms of the course of social discourse. And I'll move on to talk about the specifics of how to get there. So in terms of visibility, the main goal is to get the other 95% engaged. And what I mean 95 is for global stats, it's usually somewhere between 3 to say 8% of the LGBT. So I use the medium of 5%. So non-LGBTQ would be 95%. And first would be to leverage, some examples would be leveraging global headquarter leadership, user leaders, and as if you could see in the top two pictures here, the left person is our vice CEO in Japan. Morikita came to Taiwan and to talk about his experiences coming out story. The more stories, the better. Talk about how he came out, how he went through suicide, how he came up the ranks from being a graduate staff to partner to become leader of the firm's CEO level, and that you can do that, and this as an open LGBT person, and conversations with them. Local management, and he's been to different countries, similar as how I mentioned Beth. She did the same thing. She goes to 100 different countries around the world each year to talk about LGBTQ, to share her personal story. So if you have people like that in your organization, definitely use them, because they do have an impact, and they have a unique role because they're not part of the local culture. They're not part of Taiwan, not part of Hong Kong, Mainland China, or any other region where they're based, so it's easier for them to talk about it. So it's kind of like they leave something and then go back to their home country. So for them it's easier and it's not a big risk. And it's also easier for local leaders because they can quote someone who's not within their kind of conflict of interest. And the other person that you see in the picture is our Taiwan CEO, our country managing partner. Use your local leaders as well. If you could convince them, have them open like an event, have them come to the Pride Parade, which we're very lucky. Andrew Fu was our Taiwan CEO. He's been at the parade with us, marched through the entire thing, has different statements, talks to media, and is very active in supporting LGBT plus inclusion initiatives. So if you have that, make sure to leverage your top executives, and by that you can slowly kind of push the dial forward. And this relates directly to my second point, is to give credit to local leadership to the maximum extent possible. And third, last but not least, I think a lot of people overlook this one, but is to become friends with your HR and corp comms, because they're especially in high context cultures such as in East Asia. I think a lot of things are not vocal, not said, but it's how they feel and how you make them feel. If you make them feel good, HR and corp comms tend to be very friendly and happy to help send mass emails to the entire company, entire firm, to your awareness events, your LGBTQ events, and that significantly increases participation and raises awareness within the organization. And moving on to my second key point is continuity. So what's extremely important is to keep the conversation going. So last year we had a referendum, and unfortunately the results were not as what a lot of LGBTQ supporters have wanted. So the referendum results came out as voting against the changing the civil code and enacting a separate law for same-sex marriage. And what we did was, before the referendum, we, alongside 26 other companies, half multinationals, the other half Taiwanese companies, came out and vocally supported this joint public statement that marriage equality is good for business, and that inclusive education, talking about LGBTQ, is good for society and for our global competitiveness to push Taiwan out in the world. And after the results came out, we also had an internal kind of email within Taiwan to show our support and make sure that our people were assured in our networks, and having other indirect kind of communication that went out throughout the entire firm to show that our company is in support of inclusiveness, no matter who you are, regardless of whatever difference you have. And you can see in the picture that's HRC, and also the CEO of Pegatron, which was the largest local Taiwanese company. So they're the second largest iPhone manufacturer, second to Foxconn. So the CEO coming out, and we had our name out, our country managing partners co-signed with them, which shows that we're supportive of that. And I think it's very helpful for our people to raise visibility, especially for those who are not yet allies or not completely supportive of or understand the need or LGBT plus in general. And moving on to my last point is how to get there. I think the key here from my experience is locality. So to get as connected and as assimilated, but while keeping your own kind of global corporate LGBTQ plus inclusive culture enact, is to connect with local as much as possible. And then I came up with these 6 organizations in Taiwan and Hong Kong that seem to be very, or have been helpful in terms of raising the dial, co-working, and having co-hosts, speaking events, and working together, brainstorming sessions to to how to tackle the different events that come up. And I think that's been especially relevant with Taiwan with the marriage equality and how to promote that message, how to work with our people, with not just our training sessions or with our leaders and all the little nitty-gritty details of how to advance that. And just to talk a bit about the main events. So in Taiwan, I think the largest event that, and as we like to pride ourselves as Asia's largest Pride Parade, is #1 Taiwan LGBT Pride. If your company can be a part of that, it would significantly raise visibility, not just within the company, but it's broadcasted extensively on the different newspapers, TV channels, and similar to that in Hong Kong is the Pink Dot, which I know there's one in Singapore as well. And in terms of strategic, I would suggest that you could join the Taiwan Interco LGBT network, which I think as of now we have about 20 companies that are part of that. And we talk every month and we co-host events and all that, and similar to the Hong Kong Interbank network as well. And 5 is more for advocacy. So if your company is comfortable in supporting, being vocal about marriage equality, LGBT plus inclusion, definitely connect with MEC Taiwan. They're out at the front lines of talking about this, being on the legislative conversation, talking to legislators, to politicians, people in office. And I think for Hong Kong, 6 is also pretty relevant. I think they worked around the immigration cases, and Ivy can probably update you on that. And I know that she's heavily involved in that as well. And those are the main 3 key things from my experience. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask myself or any one of us on the call. Thank you, and I'll pass this back to CV.
Thanks, Rath. That was super informative. Now we're on to our last poll until we get to our more interactive Q&A session at the end. But for now, the last interactive poll here says, does your company's office location have a local LGBTQ or LGBTI, LGBT+, employee resource group, business resource group, affinity group, chapter? There's lots of names for it. So looks like some results are coming in now. We have about half of people are saying yes. And then just, let's see about the rest of you are saying no. One person's not so sure. Great. Okay. Well, this is good to know going into our next presentation. Mickey, if you can try to keep it to under 10 minutes, that will still leave us some time for Q&A. If you're able, that would be great. Thanks so much, everyone, and I'll send it over to Mickey.
All right. Thank you for that, CV. So quickly, I'll check if everybody can hear me clearly. Just type on the chat maybe a quick yes so that I can see if everybody can hear me clearly. Yep. Okay, good. I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Great. So by the way, again, for those who missed the introduction a while ago, my name is Mickey Gamboa. I'm the regional lead for Pride at SAP, and my day job is an HR senior consultant for service delivery specific to career development. I want to go ahead and jump right into the discussion today just to save us time. What we're going to discuss for this part of our conversation would be about the following. So quickly, the overview, vision, and strategy of SAP in terms of diversity and inclusion, the chapters that we've established here in APJ in terms of the Pride Network or Pride at SAP, and then the significant milestones that we've done so far, we have achieved since 2015, since we started this conversation here in the region. And then the last point of my conversation or the discussion would be, what's the best practice that I did and the team did here in APJ to make it more effective for us to launch several chapters in the region and to make us be heard and have that conversation continuously be heard by people inside the organization as well as externally. How do we represent that? So let's jump right into the first topic, which is the vision and strategy for SAP. I'll quickly browse through this. and then jump right into maybe the discussion of how does that look like so far translated to the networks or the ERGs or ENGs in SAP. So generally, SAP's culture of diversity and inclusion is very much ingrained to everyone in the organization. So it's clear for us what's the purpose of that, maybe from the our head office in Waldorf in Germany up until here in our location in Manila. It's clear for us what it is for and why it's done by SAP. To summarize it, it's more about becoming a bias-free workplace, to nurture the culture of inclusiveness and diversity, and to create a very engaged employee within the organization. It also would foster innovation. So the more diverse the thoughts are in a particular topic, in maybe a region, in the organization, it promotes innovation at the end of the day. Equals to that would be the customer success and the customer interaction that we have outside the organization. We represent what we see outside with our customer. The more diverse that we see our customer, the more that we should adapt within the organization. Hence, that culture is ingrained in each and individual people or employee within SAP. In our organization, there's what we call the 4 pillars of diversity and inclusion. So there's the gender intelligence, which speaks about women in business. There's what we call cultures and identity, which is where Pride at SAP is part of. There's also the generational diversity, which talks about different generations within the workplace. And then lastly, you have a conversation regarding accessibility. So we have programs for autism at work, programs for more accessibility for our differently abled individuals and employees. So those are the 4 pillars of diversity and inclusion in our organization. Going to a more specific of Pride at SAP's goals, you have listed, we have it here listed on our screen to have a more inclusive workplace, career development for individuals that are part of the LGBTQ community, networking and work-life integration, involvement with the business and community outreach. And I want to speak more now about the chapters that we have here in the region in APJ. We started the conversation in 2015 here in the region, and we were able to launch 3 chapters succeedingly with Australia, New Zealand, and the Philippines in 2015 and 2016. On the following years, we were able to launch the following chapters in India, Singapore, and Japan. And right now, we're still in the talks and conversation to launch other chapters in different countries where we have offices as well. With those launches, we did have several milestones identified already since 2015, just specific to APJ. We were able to launch, as I mentioned, chapters specific to India, Singapore, Japan. And then as well as I think one of the highlights that we've had so far regionally is we were able to launch same-gender partner benefits for select countries in China and Hong Kong, India, Singapore, and the Philippines. The question now is, how did we get that conversation going? Why did we had that conversation in the first place? How I did it was out of the need to see representation in the region of LGBT employees. And globally, just to tell you, it's very much available and readily available for our employees. However, back then in 2015 in APJ, it wasn't. Right, so I started looking and researching specifically how can we make it possible for representation and the conversation to take place. What I did was to have roadshows, and succeedingly, and the following activities was to launch chapters. Roadshows would be sort of a marketing activation to speak in front of people about the project. Why is it important to have a Pride chapter or a Pride ENG or ERG in that office, right? Aligning it also with the goals of the organization about diversity and inclusion. So the intent of the roadshow is to put the face and familiarity of the topic to these people. They may be hearing it from the news, they may be hearing it from conversation with colleagues, but they may not have seen it in a business context. So putting a face behind the story, and then as well as aligning it with the corporate goals that you have, would tell them that, oh, we should pay attention. And it has happened with the chapters that we've launched so far from the Philippines up until Japan, which we launched December 2018. So as you can see on the left side, there are pictures of the roadshows and the different chapters that we have available in APJ. The next slide presents more of our participation both internally and then externally with our engagement with our employees and then as well as other organizations and NGOs. On the upper left corner of the screen, there was a question a while ago regarding how do you engage executives or from top management, how do you do that? From the upper management, check first regarding what's the policy for diversity and inclusion. How does that look like in terms of the culture, right? Because from the upper management, the executive level, if it's clear for them what's diversity and inclusion in the first place, then it's easier for you to promote from the grassroots level of the employee what diversity and inclusion is, or even Pride at SAP for that matter. Some of it would be sensitive topics in particular countries or certain countries, but definitely make sure it's aligned with the corporate goal. Going back to the picture, that's our Chief HR Officer who was here in Manila 2 weeks ago, and I was also able to present a similar topic or conversation regarding our milestones here in APJ. And then the rest of the pictures are representation of our Pride marches here in Manila, the awards that we've received in Australia, and then as well as other activities, not only in the Philippines or APJ, but also our attendance in Out and Equal and other Pride marches around the world. And just to wrap it up and make it quicker, the how. For me, when I started talking about it, these are the following things that I usually go back to in order for me to check if I'm still doing the bucket list, or sorry, the checklist of things that I've done here in the Philippines first. The first and foremost thing that you should do is start with storytelling. Relate it first to your personal experience of the why. Why is it important for you to launch a chapter, or why do you need to talk about this in the first place? What you need to do after that is to incorporate the values of the organization in terms of diversity, inclusion, Pride at SAP, LGBT at work, maybe women at work as well, in your storytelling, so that it gives a picture of it's not only important for you as a person, but it's also important for the organization as well. Next is, after you've talked about it, did the roadshow, you might be able to look into as well strengthening and working with other Pride networks, or sorry, other resource group within the organization. Collaborate with them. If there's an existing network right there, you might as well collaborate with them, especially if they're also part of the diversity inclusion programs of your organization. Additionally, when you say collaborate, it's not only limited internally. You can also use other organizations to benchmark. So work with other organizations within the region or maybe within your country to benchmark, to work for better understanding through conferences, to as well as maybe best practices sharing or knowledge sharing. And then last 2 points would be to involve leadership and executive. The more that you talk about it, the more that people will take notice of these particular conversation. And then have somebody from the executive level invite them to talk about it. What's their thought about diversity inclusion or Pride at SAP, or the Pride network that you have in your company. And then lastly, visibility of not only you as an LGBT employee at work, but also your allies, so that it puts the holistic approach of the picture of Pride at SAP, the LGBT network, and the work that you're doing for diversity and inclusion. Right? So that's just recapping everything that I talked about a while ago. For any question maybe regarding specific countries, I'll put in the appendix contact persons for each country, and then as well as my contact details if you're interested to connect with me. That's it for my presentation. Thank you. I'll turn it back to CB. CB?
Thanks so much, Mickey. Wow, we got some really, really great questions. This is great. I'm going to try my best to get to some of the bigger questions that seem to be repeated. However, I just want to remind everybody on the line that if we don't get to some of your questions, we will be answering them in a blog post. So our presenters are going to give answers to the questions we don't answer right now in a blog post, and we will send you that link. So all questions will be answered, not to worry. But let me get started, and we can go a little bit over 10, but I still want to be respectful of people's time, so we'll try to end as close as possible as 10 as we can. I'll go in the order that we presented in. So Ivy, there was one interesting question here. Somebody asked, let's see, Enya asks that In Australia, they had a postal vote for marriage equality in 2017. I'm sure we all remember. And during that campaign, social media, particularly WeChat, was used to spread anti-LGBTIQ opinions across the Asian community, and quite effectively. What role does social media play in LGBTQ advocacy in your country, or in your countries, she asks, but I'm directing the question towards you for now. And are there any restrictions on company messages or censorship?
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is a very interesting question. For the social media, of course, here in China, although we have a great firewall, social media still play a very big role. And in China, we don't have Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, blog, but then we have the equivalent Weibo of Twitter, a similar equivalent of Twitter. And last year, there was kind of like incident in Weibo, where was one bureau issue a censorship on LGBTQ content. But then the millions of people in Weibo actually rejected, and the next day the censorship was taken down. And also in 2015, there was a major campaign by Alibaba online, where they vote for same-sex marriage, and millions of people vote, and they send 10 couples to get married in San Francisco. So you can see that even though the internet is quite blocked from outside world, people in China are still supporting, especially the internet users are supporting LGBTQ in the internet. And then, sorry, is there any second question? I forgot the second question. Maybe.
The second part of the question, yes, the second part of the question was if there are any restrictions on company messages or censorship.
Yes. So as for the company, well, the government actually do not really have a high censorship towards companies' messages among the corporate. I think there's also another question that is kind of linked to it, like how to start ERG at the company. And so I think mostly for companies who wanted to start an ERG related to LGBT, first thing is to do an education, really do an LGBT 101 to really convey a message and also educate people on the ground what is LGBT in China and what is the terminology and what is legal and illegal, and also defining using the right language, especially Mandarin Chinese, to convey the messages. And essentially, you may want to start by framing it as a diversity inclusion initiative rather than LGBT initiative, so that to attract employees' attention, and also attract them to ask questions about what is D&I on the first step. So I hope this can answer the question. Thank you, Phoebe.
Thank you. Perfect. Rath and Nikki, I think we have time for one question for each of you, and then the rest of the questions, as I mentioned, our presenters will answer them in an email, in a blog, and it'll be sent to you all after this call. So for now, Rath, there was a question that came in directed towards you, and it is asking, it's from Curtis Baker, asking, how do you balance working in Greater China between Taiwan and Mainland China in your best practices, i.e. regulations, programs, community involvement, being an MNC?
Thanks, CV. Yeah, I think that's a great question. So in terms of our internal message, there's not too much of an issue. So what I do in Taiwan, I can actually do in China as well, as in Hong Kong. But what does get tricky is when it comes to external messaging. I think because of some of the regulations, you kind of have to tweak wording or change wording for things that go out externally in the Chinese market because of such sensitivities. So we'd work more closely with our branding or our communications compliance team to make sure that message is not offensive or not compliant with the regulations there. So it adds an extra layer. But I think in terms of if you want to do like awareness sessions or if you want to do anything that's completely internal, I I don't see much of an issue between Taiwan, China, or Hong Kong. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. But yeah, but so from my experience, I think everything starts from internal. So it starts from building a culture that's LGBT inclusive. Then you can worry about more of the external things, or you could kind of focus more on internal at the same time, kind of slowly build out your external. But yeah, there are networks that, you know, HR groups or like ERG groups in mainland China as well, that, you know, companies talk with each other and how to, like, you know, work with the around the sensitivities, but they still have events. And yeah, although, you know, as I mentioned, it adds an extra layer in terms of that.
Makes sense. Great, thank you. And last but not least, Mickey, I'm going to direct this question towards you since you played such a vital role in launching so many different chapters in different countries of the ERG. Kat wants to know, how are these chapters self-sustaining?
I think that's a good question right there. Thank you for asking that, Kat. And thank you, by the way, CV. Two things. When you're doing it in a very high level sort of approach, which means you're trying to adapt a very global goal of your organization to a country, it might not resonate with the local audience. So when you're creating that chapter, make sure that you align it with the sensibility of the local chapter, right, to understand what the need is. Afterwards, if you create that objective, that goal for each of the chapter, find a very passionate lead to make sure that these objective local goals is or would be met, maybe in a time frame of 5 years, 10 years, how long it would take, right? So develop these local chapter leaders to be able to run the show on the ground without even you trying to look after them day in, day out. Just organize it around the goals of the bigger company or the organization, create a more local flavor, more applicable to the need of the local chapter, and then have somebody who's very passionate to run the chapter on the ground. That's it.
Wonderful. Great. Well, we're slightly past time, but I want to thank our wonderful, wonderful presenters, Ivy, Rath, and Mickey, so much for your time, for sharing your expertise, and for engaging in this important conversation today. I also want to remind everyone on the call that I know there was some technical difficulties in the beginning, so if you know anybody who might have missed that beginning link, just let them know that this session has been recorded and it will be sent to them via email. Another reminder that the questions we didn't get to today are going to be answered in a blog by our amazing presenters that will also be sent to you all via email, and that's anyone who registered. So that's going to come probably sometime later this week or next week. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. This has been a really interesting conversation. As you exit our webinar today, you should see a brief survey after the call. Please feel free to fill that out and help us continue to improve. Thank you so much, everybody.